Thank you for staying with us on Citizen Weekend. Huldah Hillsley captured the Kenyan imagination in November when she clinched the Minnesota State Assembly seat for District 38A. And that is because her maiden name is Momanyi. A Kenyan by birth, Momanyi, whose family faced the threat of deportation, has shown that the American dream is possible. I sat down with her earlier this week and she shared these insights. How does it feel being back home?
I try to come here at least once a year. I do have a nonprofit that I run, and so it affords me the opportunity to come back and really be with family and the community.
Is it different being back as an elected representative?
It is, because of the attention. I'm not used to all of this attention. And so it has been different from that perspective, but at the same time, it's also different from the perspective of I get the opportunity to engage our community, our people on a different level, right? In terms of what the possibilities are, in terms of collaboration on economic issues, as well as cultural trade opportunities. So I'm looking forward to it.
Tell us a little bit about what that movement was like.
It was overwhelming because, as you know, I ran before for Senate and I didn't win. We came really close. And to finally realize, to dawn on me that we finally did it, we've won. And I didn't know that I was going to be the first until that moment, that night. My good friend of mine, Tom Gitta, who is the editor of Mushale newspaper in Minnesota, was like, "You did it, you're the first." And I'm sitting here going, I'm the first. What am I the first of? And then he explained to me. And so that moment was definitely a moment that I will never forget, because I compare that moment with the moment that I found out that I lost the Senate race, and the difference and the different emotions that I felt. And so it was a moment that I will forever remember.
And what do you think made the difference this time around that clinched you the win?
Yes, I think what clinched me the win was understanding how to run a campaign using data. You know, the first time I ran for Senate, I was like, we just have to go and talk to people and just get votes. But really understanding how data drives decisions was key. For example, you know, the first time I ran, we just wanted to hit every single door, but you can't hit 80,000 doors, right? So you have to be strategic about it. So this time around, we looked at data from the past 5 elections. We were like, where are the key voters within my district? Who votes the most? Let's target those first and lock them down. Once we lock them down, then we can kind of spread that and expand that. And so utilizing data and technology, social media was a big difference from the first race.
How much would that cost, running a campaign such as you ran? Because it costs millions of shillings to get into elected office.
Yes. My campaign this time around, I think we fundraised and raised about $55,000 for a House seat. That's not bad. The goal for us was to raise about $60,000, so we came fairly close to raising our max. And you know, all of that money is obviously going into the print of the literature that we're passing around. It's going into making sure that we have what we call canvassers. Those are people that go out and do the door-to-door knocking, the staff that are running the campaign managers, the field director, the data director as well. And then lastly, it goes into, you know, hosting events, right? Especially in my district, we had to host different events pertaining to the different communities within the district.
We have a man who's come back, well, in January, we'll be assuming office, the White House, who ran on an anti-immigrant platform. And here you are, an immigrant, the first Kenyan-born immigrant
Absolutely.
To be elected to the Minnesota House of Representatives.
Yes.
Do you think, what does that tell you about the state of the U.S.?
You know, I'm a testament that, you know, the American dream is still true and real. And even if we have an individual who is anti-immigrant, you know, the immigrant population in the U.S. has literally built the U.S. economy. The culture of the U.S. is literally rooted in immigrants and what they have brought into the country. And so when you hear rhetoric about, you know, we're going to deport, you know, half half of the population, some of that doesn't even make sense legally. Realistically, it does not make sense, right? Because if even if you don't, deport half of the immigrants, just even a half of the half, right? You're literally crippling the whole entire U.S. economy, and we can't afford that. So a lot of these things that we're hearing about his rhetoric, and don't get me wrong now, there's some truth to that, but I just want to encourage people that, we also have the law. Right? We have a constitution that affords individuals in the United States certain rights. And yes, obviously, if you are illegal in the U.S., there's rights that are not afforded to you. I get that, and I understand that the U.S. has to protect its borders. I get that as well. But also, we are called to be compassionate and to, extend a helping hand when somebody is really going through something. So his rhetoric is literally jeopardizing, individuals, for example, refugees who are literally leaving very critical environments to come for a safe haven in the U.S. He is jeopardizing immigrants who've literally been in the country for example, there's a program called DECA. This program encompasses individuals who were brought in when they were babies, right? And so these individuals, they are now grown up, they have their own families, they have invested in the U.S., and now you're telling them, well, go back to your country. What country are they going to? The country that they're going to, they don't even know what that country is. Your family has been through that struggle. I read your father went there in the 90s. You followed when you were 9 years old. You struggled for, is it citizenship? Yes. For 11 years, is it? 11 years. And 11 until, years. Is there a representative stepped in and... A congressman, senator, Paul Wellstone, yes. And when people say, well, people need to go through proper channels. Well, those proper channels, for some, takes a long time. For my family, it took 11 years. And within those 11 years, we were literally 48 hours away from being deported from this country, from the U.S. And it wasn't, like you said, if it wasn't for my church that the petition then Senator Paul Wellstone to come to our aid, I don't know where I would be today. I don't know what my life would look like. And so that moment right there defined the trajectory of my life to the point where I didn't understand back then what that moment meant. Now we're seeing the fruits of that moment. Me being here 22 plus years later, have run for office and I've actually succeeded in winning, and now sitting here making history. Why the decision to get into politics, especially considering the mudslinging that happens, and women most times bear the brunt of that? What was this experience like for you? Was there a moment where you thought twice and you're like, I have a family, why bother? Yeah, that is a really good question because, I never saw myself being in politics. I never really thought about, me being, quote, a politician, that word. To this day, when somebody calls me I'm a politician, I'm like, really? I'm just Hulda. But the reason why I went into this is because I realized that there's power when you are at the Capitol. There's power when you are at the table making decisions that actually impact people's lives. And I experienced that firsthand when I was a leader of the Kenyan community in the state of Minnesota, where I would go to the Capitol. I'm lobbying these politicians, right, for resources and being ignored and being belittled and being unheard. And that's when I realized, after, for example, I would get a grant, right, and that grant would end and we'll go back to, the first step, right? I finally realized sustainability in our community is rooted in sound policy. And because I love policy, I love community engagement, grassroots mobilizing, that's when, I remember the moment that somebody asked me, are you running for office, is when PLO Lumumba came to Minnesota and we were taking him to the state capitol. I did my presentation, and then there was a representative, African-American woman, Representative Brenda Moran, who walked up to me after and she goes, who are you? What are you about? Do you want to run for office? Have you run for office? Do you live here? And I'm sitting here going, wait, slow down. What are you talking about? What office? No, I'm the president of a Kenyan organization that brought this gentleman. No, I'm talking about running for office, like House of Representatives, Senate. And I'm like, no, should I? I mean, no, I guess I never thought about it. She goes, go think about it. I'm giving you 3 days, right? That's the first time somebody has ever approached me about running, and I've never thought about it. And then I didn't think much of it, but what made it, what got me over the line was when we were at a political event for my current mayor now, and my current senator was there, and I walked up to her and I was like, hey, we've petitioned in your office, there's an issue here, can we talk about it, you know? And she literally gave me a card, brushed me off, walked away, and was like, contact my office, you know? And at that very moment, I felt insignificant, I felt belittled, and I'm sitting here going, this is not the democracy that I know, right? We choose the people, you know? And so I looked around and I was like, somebody needs to run, right? And the people around me were just giggling, like, Hulda, what are you talking about? And I remember that night at around 3 o'clock in the morning, Googling under the covers how to become a candidate. And then from there, everything was history. I ran for Senate, I lost, but I learned a lot of lessons, which really carried me to this, basically laid a groundwork for the successful campaign that we had this time around.
So you're a woman.
Yes.
You're a black woman.
I'm a black woman.
And you're an immigrant.
Yes.
The odds, anybody look at the odds would go like the odds are stacked against her.
Yes, yes.
How did you overcome them?
I think it's persistent and resilience. And I think having a message that resonates with your constituency and listening to your constituency. I remember I would walk up to a door, you know, and I would get a really warm reception. Oh, you're, you know, a breath of fresh air. You know, I love your ideas. This is what I think about this. And people really being open from all different walks of life, from all races, you know. And yes, were there challenges? Of course, you know, I would knock at a door and somebody would cuss me out and tell me that I do not belong here. I need to go back to the country that I was born in, and so forth. But the overwhelming support from my community, especially the diversity of my community, really carried me. I also want to add another layer to that. I meant to say layers. You know, your own community, their expectations of you, right? And that double-edged sword where my counterpart, you know, as a white male, you know, they don't need permission, you know, from their community to run. And this statement literally came from my community. Who gave you permission to run? You know, and in my head, I'm thinking, are you asking my counterpart?
When you face ignorance, like you've said, such as people telling you, go back to your country, how do you not let that get to you?
When you've been through what my family has gone through, when you've gone through your struggles, when you've had lived experiences that teaches you tenacity, that teaches you to have a thick skin, you know, some of these things don't even bother you because you know that what you're chasing is greater than those things. Don't get me wrong now, there's moments where I would sit here and question myself and wonder, is it even worth it? Is it even worth my mental health? Is it even worth the sacrifice for my family? Because I was away and I continue to be away. You know, cause I joked with my husband, well, not even joking, because at this point it's not even a joke anymore, but I kept on telling him, after campaign season, I'll be available. My friend, that's different. And so I think what grounds me is knowing that, you know, I want to create a world, an environment where my kids will grow up and they don't have to worry about the challenges that I went through. Obviously, you know, my kids are American and have two different cultures that they have to navigate themselves, and they'll have their own struggles. But you know, basic things as them being accepted for who they are shouldn't be something that they have to deal with. And creating, you know, and being a part of building structures and institutions that value every human being of different backgrounds and what they bring to the table is something that I definitely want to leave as a legacy. When you're in the U.S., do you keep a finger on the pulse of what's happening back home? I mean, you know, I am a Kenyan through and through. Obviously, my second home now, being the U.S. as a Kenyan American, I do care about what happens here. And the reason why I care is that I do have family, a very large extended family here. You are at a GBV. Yes. An 16 days of activism against GBV. It was World Human Rights Day, and yet you have women who are marching against femicide, which you've spoke about. Absolutely. Tear gassed by police, so it seems we're still in the struggle. Yeah, absolutely. And that's where I think that, you know, accountability has to take place, right? And however that looks like. It comes down to the law of the land, and that's the Constitution. If there was a peaceful march, which it was, as far as I've been told, you know, the law enforcement should be able to protect that, to allow its citizens to exercise their fullest, you know, right to protest. And I can't speak really much into their actions, obviously, because I'm not a part of that. But all I can say as an outsider looking in is that, you know, there's individual citizens who are exercising their right to really voice their opinions about a very sensitive topic to many people, not only here in the country, but around the word.
So what message do you have for the 9-year-old girl, the 9-year-old Hulda Momanye? This was pre-Hillsley.
Hillsley, yes. My message would be this. Chase your dreams. Be authentic to who you are and what your dreams are. Don't be afraid to dream. Don't be afraid to step out into your comfort zone, outside of your comfort zone, and explore. Because when you do that, it opens doors that you don't even know exists. It opens opportunities that you know, were not even visible to anybody around you. And again, I think I said be authentic. Because if you stay true to who you are, everything else will align up. And don't be afraid to ask questions. Because I'm one of those people that I will even ask to the point where you're like, there's Google, right? But dare to dream. Because literally, for me, nobody ever thought, even my ancestors never thought that I would leave this tiny little village here in Kenya and go to a foreign land and run for office and actually win and be acknowledged as a leader there. And so, you know, and also don't be afraid to give back, because by giving back and volunteering your time, it allows you to learn how to lead. It opens certain opportunities where somebody who wasn't even thinking about you will look and she'll be like, well, look at so-and-so. They've been doing this for a while. Let's have them step into this role because they have already put in the work. And let your work speak for you. Be a person of integrity, be a person of character, and put in the work. Don't expect things to just be handed to you. And I was just talking to my sister, and she reminded me that now we're celebrating, now I'm all glammed up. But there's a photo of me, of my team, literally they took of me sitting on the curb at 3 o'clock in the morning because we were door knocking at not door knocking, lit dropping at apartment complexes where we were just dropping our literature on the cars, so that when they wake up in the morning, they would see that, they would hopefully go out and vote. 3 o'clock in the morning, I looked like I was homeless, right? But I remember that moment, my feet was hurting, but I was like, if we don't do this, that's one vote that I might, you know, that I might lose. And so don't be afraid to put in those long hours, because at the end of the rainbow, right, there is that price. When you put in, when you apply yourself, it might not be at that moment, because at first, my rainbow, I thought I was gonna get a prize when I ran for Senate, right? It took another 3 years to get to this place. So be consistent and be patient. Put in that work and you will see the result at the end.
Have your parents told you what it means to them from 48 hours away from deportation to their daughter is going to be in the Minnesota State Assembly?
Yes. You know, it's so funny. I think you need to interview my dad. My dad, hey, he has been beaming from ear to ear since the news broke, and after that watch party, that watch party night, and I could see it, I could sense it, even when he gets on calls, and there's that just energy around him. You know, he doesn't have to necessarily tell me this means this. But by how he is moving, how he is talking, how he's carrying himself, you can definitely tell that he's beyond excited. He feels that both of my parents, my mom and my dad, both feel like this moment right here really, you know, is a testimony of the sacrifices and the long nights and the tears and everything that they sacrificed for us to be in the U.S. and now to be here as a family.
So what are you looking forward to, at least while you're here? Chapati?
Oh my goodness. So in the Kisii tradition, I'm what they call omusamaro. meaning that we love to eat that ugali, right? Like I love my ugali and maziwa lala, you know, sagas, managus, you name it. I'm a traditional Kisii woman that love all of that. And so I'm looking forward to getting authentic Kenyan ugali with nyama choma on the side and kachumbari. And I love my food, as you can tell.
So clearly, at least you'll have a taste of the festivities while you're here.
Yes, absolutely.
So we take a break, but Citizen Weekend continues on the other side.